Today we're going to be talking about linear graphs. Now, sometimes we need to investigate the relationship between two variables, x and y. And in order to do that, we're going to need to use the Cartesian coordinate plane from Mr. René Descartes, if you remember, to figure out if there's a relationship between some values. So let's go with some values over here. Let's plot the point 0, 0, which is at the origin, as you know. Let's see, 1, 2, which is right here, 2, 4, so positive 2, positive 4, positive 3, positive 6, oops, I lost count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on and so forth. What I'm going to see is that those points make a line. And that line looks something like that. Now, what I can say is that any point on this particular line is going to be labeled as y equals 2x. And what that tells me is whatever my x coordinate is, I'm going to take that x coordinate and multiply it by 2 in order to get my y coordinate. So why don't we take a look at some other graphs to see how they come out on the line. Alright, so let's take a look at some samples here. I have -4, -2, 0, +2, +4. Now here's my first graph of y equals x. Well, if y equals x, that means whatever I put down for x, I have to put down for y. So if x equals -4, y equals -4. If x equals -2, x equals y equals -2. If x equals 0, y equals 0. If x equals 2, y equals 2, and if x equals 4, y equals 4. So that means if I'm plotting these points, let's see, -4, -4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm over here, -2, -2, still in the third quadrant, 0 and 0. +2, +2, +4, +4, +4. You didn't see that. Okay. And then so my line would look something like this. Oh man. Yeah. See, that's why I use the magic line tool here, because that gets me something like this. So much better. Alright, anyway, let's take a look at the next graph. I have y equals -x plus 2. So in this case, I have a -x with a -4. So if x equals -4, then I have a -4, which is a +4, plus 2 is 6. And then if you want, you can go ahead and fill out the rest of these of the chart. You don't have to wait for me. I can be kind of slow sometimes. It's my job to do so. And we fill everything in. Now once we get to 2 and 4, we'll notice that the values here, everything seems to be steadily decreasing, because now at x equals 4, that means I have -4 plus 2 to get me a -2. And now I have y equals 1/2 x plus 1. And I plug in my values. I start with -4. Oh, maybe we should go back and graph this first. So if x equals -4, 1, 2, 3, 4, then y equals a +6. Whoa, so we're going this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then if x equals -2, 1, 2, y equals a +4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And if x equals 0, y equals a +2, 1, 2. And if x equals 2, 1, 2, y equals 0. And if x equals +4, 1, 2, 3, 4, y equals -2, down here in the fourth quadrant. And then so now we see this line taking somewhat of a negative direction as it goes. And we'll talk more about positive and negatives next time. And then our last line, let's graph these points. If x equals -4, then half of -4 is -2, plus 1 is a -1. So I have -1, and then half of a -2 is -1, plus 1 is 0. 1, 2, 3. And now we see these values start to increase. So if x equals -4, here we are back again, -4, y is -1. At x is -2, y is at 0. At x is 0, y is 1. At x is 2, y is 2. Oh, look at that, we share a common point. And at x is 4, y is 3. So now when I go ahead and draw a line through those, I get this point. So what we can see is some of the lines move in what looks like an upward direction from the third quadrant up to the first, and some of the other lines, or the other line, moves in a negative direction from the second quadrant to the fourth quadrant. And let me erase this so you could see these lines. We'll talk more about these lines tomorrow, but before we leave, there's something super important. Here are the important notes. Hopefully you write this down because I'm telling you to write it down, and because I'm even going to get a highlighter out, and I'm going to tell you the graph of any equation of the form y equals mx plus b, or x equals a, and a is going to be any sort of constant, is a straight line. Okay, yes, it's true that all lines are straight by definition. But in this case, we want to talk about the shape that they take on the graph, and we see we have lines. So, the graph of an equation of the form y equals mx plus b, or x equals a, is a straight line where a, b, and m, the value in these equations, so in this case it's m and b, and in this case it's a, they are all constants. Do you remember what the word constants means? Do you know who this man is? Bonus points for both of those answers tomorrow.